The city of Seoul burned for the third time that week. Dr. Hana Kim watched the orange flames dance across the skyline through the cracked window of the underground bunker. She had stopped counting the days since Earth's surrender. Time had lost meaning when humanity lost the war. "They're coming through the North Tunnel," someone shouted. The voice belonged to Commander Ji-won Lee, a woman who had fought in every major battle of the resistance. Her uniform was torn and stained with dust. Her eyes held the kind of tiredness that sleep could never fix. Hana turned away from the window and looked at the scattered papers on her desk. Years of research. Thousands of hours trying to understand the Valum language. All of it useless now. The aliens had won not because they were stronger, though they were. They had won because humanity never understood what they were saying. The bunker shook. Dust fell from the ceiling like snow. The lights flickered and went dark for 3 seconds before the emergency power kicked in. In those 3 seconds, Hana heard people crying. She heard people praying. She heard the sound of weapons being loaded for a fight. Everyone knew they would lose. "How long do we have?" Hana asked. Ji-won checked her watch. 10 minutes. Maybe 15 if we're lucky. "We're never lucky," said Mireille Choi. She was a scientist who had designed the weapons that were supposed to save Earth. They hadn't worked. Nothing had worked. The Valen shields were too strong. Their weapons were too advanced. Their numbers were too many. Hana gathered her most important papers and stuffed them into a waterproof bag. 3 years of war had taught her to keep her research portable. She had moved from Seoul to Bizen to Tokyo, to underground bunkers like this one 17 times. Each time, she left pieces of her old life behind. Books, photographs, friends who didn't make it to the next shelter. "You should destroy those papers," Ji-won said. "Don't let them have your research." Hana shook her head. "If there's any chance, any small chance that understanding their language could help us, I have to keep trying." The bunker shook again. This time, the lights stayed off longer. When they came back on, half of them were broken. The room looked strange in the partial darkness. Shadows fell across people's faces in ways that made them look like strangers. Taenim Park walked into the room. He was another linguist, someone Hana had worked with before the war. He looked nervous. His hands were shaking. "The Valen are offering terms," Taemin said. "They'll spare everyone in this bunker if the leaders surrender peacefully." Ji-won laughed. It was a bitter sound. They said that to the Sydney resistance. They said that to the Moscow holdouts. They executed everyone anyway. "This time it's different," Taemin insisted. "They want the research leaders alive. They want to put them on trial on the throne world. They want the galaxy to see that humanity accepts their rule." Hana looked at him carefully. Something was wrong with the way he spoke. His words were too smooth, too rehearsed. "Taemin, what did you do?" He couldn't meet her eyes. "I made a deal. They promised safety for my family. My wife, my daughter. They're in a camp in what used to be Beijing. The Valen said they'd let them go if I helped them find the resistance leaders." The room went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Ji-won's hand moved to her weapon. "You sold us out. I saved my family." Taemin shouted. "You don't have children. You don't understand. I had to choose." Before anyone could respond, the north wall of the bunker exploded inward. The blast threw Hana to the ground. Her ears rang. She couldn't hear anything except a high-pitched whine. Through the smoke and dust, she saw them. The Valen soldiers. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that looked like polished metal. Their armor glowed with energy fields. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single machine. They carried weapons that hummed with power. One of them spoke. The words came through a translator that turned the alien sounds into flat, emotionless Korean. Resistance fighters of Earth, you are defeated. Surrender, and you will be treated according to the laws of the Valen Empire. Ji-won fired her weapon. The energy bolt hit the soldier's shield and scattered into harmless sparks. The soldier didn't even flinch. 2 more Valen entered through the hole in the wall. Then 4 more. Then 10. The fight lasted 30 seconds. It wasn't even a real fight. The resistance fighters shot their weapons until they overheated or ran out of power. The Valen soldiers simply walked forward, their shields absorbing everything. When they reached the fighters, they used devices that sent out pulses of energy. People dropped to the ground, unconscious. Hannah tried to run. A Valen soldier caught her by the arm. The grip was strong, but not painful. She looked up into its face. The alien had 3 eyes arranged in a triangle. Its mouth was a thin line that didn't move when it spoke. Dr. Hannah Kim, xenolinguist, you are classified as a priority prisoner. You will be transported to Valonis Prime for trial before the Emperor. They put her in chains. Real metal chains, not energy restraints. Hannah realized it was symbolic. The Valen wanted the prisoners to feel conquered. They wanted the weight of metal to remind them of their defeat. Ji-won was chained next to her. Mireille was on her other side. Taemin stood apart, unchained, watching them with guilty eyes. The Valen had kept their word to him, at least for now. They were marched up through the ruins of the bunker. The stairs were covered in rubble. Bodies of fighters who had died defending the entrance lay where they had fallen. Hannah tried not to look at their faces. Outside, the city looked worse than she had imagined. Entire blocks were gone, replaced by craters filled with water. Buildings that had stood for hundreds of years were now twisted metal and broken concrete. The sky was dark with smoke. A Valen transport ship waited in what used to be a park. It was massive, big enough to hold hundreds of prisoners. The hull was smooth and black, reflecting nothing. It looked like a piece of the night sky had fallen to earth. They loaded the prisoners into holding cells inside the ship. Each cell was barely big enough to stand up or lie down. The walls were transparent, so the guards could watch everyone at all times. Hannah sat on the cold floor and hugged her knees to her chest. Through the transparent wall, she could see other prisoners. Some were resistance fighters. Others were scientists. A few were politicians who had refused to collaborate. All of them were going to the same place. The throne world. The heart of the Valen Empire. The ship lifted off. Hannah felt the acceleration press her against the floor. Through a small window high up in her cell, she caught one last glimpse of Earth, her home. The blue and green world that had given birth to humanity. It looked so small already, so fragile. The ship left Earth's orbit. The engines made a sound like distant thunder. Hannah closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. Her mind kept working, kept analyzing, kept searching for patterns. During the weeks in the bunker, she had intercepted Valen communications. She had noticed something strange. When Valen soldiers spoke to each other, their language followed patterns. Certain words always came before others. Certain phrases caused immediate responses. It reminded her of something from her linguistics training. Embedded commands. Programmed responses. What if the Valen language itself was a form of control? What if the way they spoke shaped the way they thought? And if that was true, what did it mean for all the species they had conquered? For all the worlds forced to learn Valen as their primary language? Hannah opened her eyes. She pulled out one of the papers she had hidden in her clothes. In the dim light of the cell, she began to write. If she was going to die on the throne world, she would at least die understanding the enemy. And maybe, just maybe, that understanding would matter. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. Earth disappeared behind them. Ahead lay the unknown, the court, the Emperor, and whatever fate waited for the last free humans in the galaxy. The prison ship traveled through space for what felt like forever. Hannah lost track of time. There were no windows in her cell except for the small one high above. All she saw was the endless black of space and distant stars that looked like tiny lights. The guards brought food twice a day. It was a gray paste that tasted like nothing. Hannah ate it because she needed strength. She didn't know what was coming, but she knew she needed to be ready. On the 5th day, or maybe the 10th day, she couldn't be sure something changed. Through the transparent walls of her cell, she saw the guards standing straighter. They moved with more purpose. One of them spoke into a communication device, and Hannah heard a single word that made her heart beat faster. Valonus, the throne world. They had arrived. The ship shuddered as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Hannah pressed her face against the small window. What she saw took her breath away. The capital city of the Valan Empire stretched as far as she could see. Buildings made of crystal and metal rose into the sky like mountains. Bridges of light connected them in patterns that looked like spider webs. Flying vehicles moved between the structures in organized streams. Everything was clean. Everything was ordered. Everything was perfect. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ship landed on a platform that floated above the city. Guards opened the cell doors and pulled the prisoners out. Hannah's legs were weak from days of sitting. She stumbled, and a guard caught her. The alien's metal hand was cold through her shirt. They were lined up in rows. Hannah counted 50 prisoners from Earth, 50 people who had fought or refused to give up. All of them were chained. All of them were defeated. But then Hannah saw something that changed everything. Beyond the Earth prisoners, there were others. Hundreds of others. Aliens of species she had never seen before. Some had fur. Some had scales. Some had skin that changed colors. Some had multiple arms. Some floated in the air without touching the ground. All of them wore chains. All of them had the same look in their eyes. The look of the conquered. Earth is just one more world, Hannah whispered to Jiwan, who stood next to her. We're not special. We're just the latest. Jiwan's jaw tightened. Then we die like all the others died. Or we learn what they learned, Hannah said. How to survive. The guards marched them through the city. People stopped to watch. Not just Valan, but members of all those other species. They stared at the human prisoners with curiosity. Some looked sad. Others looked relieved that someone else was being paraded through the streets instead of them. The Imperial Court was the largest building Hannah had ever seen. It was shaped like a pyramid, but the sides were made of something that looked like frozen light. At the top, a symbol glowed. Hannah recognized it from Valan communications. The mark of the Emperor. Inside, the court was even more impressive. The ceiling was so high that Hannah couldn't see the top. The floor was polished stone that reflected everything like a mirror. And in the center, rising up on platforms, were the seats of power. The Emperor's throne was at the highest point. It was made of black metal and surrounded by a field of energy that crackled and sparked. Below him sat his advisors. Hannah recognized their roles from her research. The military commander, the civil administrator, and the one who worried her most, the voice of the Emperor, a female Valan named Lady Erith. She was the one who spoke the Emperor's words to the court. Around the room, on lower platforms, sat representatives from every conquered world. Hundreds of species, thousands of years of conquest, all gathered in one place to witness the newest additions to the Empire. A Valan official struck a rod against the floor. The sound rang out like a bell. Everyone in the court fell silent. "Bring forth the prisoners of Earth," Lady Irith commanded. Her voice was amplified somehow. It filled the entire space. The guards pushed the prisoners forward. Hannah and the others walked across the polished floor. Their chains rattled with each step. The sound echoed in the massive room. Emperor Rael looked down at them. He was larger than the other Valen, and his armor was decorated with symbols that glowed. He had the same 3 eyes arranged in a triangle, but his were different colors: red, blue, and gold. Hannah had read that only the royal line had colored eyes. "Humans of Earth," the Emperor said. His voice was deep and steady. "You have been brought before this court to answer for your crimes. You attacked Valen explorers. You destroyed our ships. You killed our people. What do you say to these charges?" They brought Jiwan forward first. She stood straight despite her chains. "We defended our home. Your explorers attacked our space stations. Your ships invaded our territory. We had every right to fight back." "Lies," said Vorn, the High Commander. "We came in peace. We sent messages of greeting. Your people fired on us without warning. Your messages were threats." Jiwan shot back. "You demanded we surrender before we even knew who you were." The Emperor raised one hand. "Silence the prisoner." A field of energy surrounded Jiwan. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She struggled against it, but the field was too strong. After a moment, the guards dragged her to the side. "The punishment for attacking the Empire is exile to the prison colonies," Lady Irith announced. "You will spend your remaining years working in the mines of Korath 7. They brought Myray forward next. She tried a different approach. "Great Emperor, I am a scientist. I can show you proof that our first contact was a misunderstanding. We have recordings of your ships powering weapons before any communication was established. If you would just look at the data." "Your data is false," Chancellor Kess said. "Humans are known liars. Everything you say is designed to avoid responsibility for your aggression. That's not true." Myray shouted. "We're not liars. We're just trying to survive." But the court didn't listen. They sentenced her to the same prison colony. The same fate. She cried as the guards took her away. One by one, the other prisoners were brought forward. One by one, they were sentenced. Some begged. Some threatened. Some said nothing at all. It didn't matter. The result was always the same. Then it was Hannah's turn. The guards grabbed her arms and pulled her to the center of the court. She stood directly below the Emperor's throne, looking up at the most powerful being in the known galaxy. For a long moment, she said nothing. She just looked around the court, at the representatives of 100 conquered worlds, at the Valen officials who ran the Empire, at the Emperor himself. And then she spoke. But she didn't speak in Korean. She didn't speak in English. She spoke in High Valen, the language of the aristocracy, the language she had spent 3 years studying from intercepted communications. "Great Emperor Rael, Master of the Eternal Throne, Lord of 10,000 worlds, I speak to you with respect and truth." The court gasped. Hannah heard whispers spread through the room like wind through grass. A human speaking High Valen was unexpected. A human speaking it correctly was impossible. Lady Irith leaned forward. "Where did you learn that language?" Hannah kept her eyes on the Emperor. "I am a student of language, voice of the Emperor. It is my life's work to understand how people communicate. I have listened to your words for years. I have studied your patterns. I have learned your speech." The Emperor tilted his head. It was a gesture of curiosity. "Why did you learn our language if you intended to fight us?" "Because I never wanted to fight," Hannah said. "I wanted to understand. I believed that if we could talk to each other, truly talk, we might find peace." "There is peace now," Vorn said. The peace of submission. Hannah turned to look at him. Is it peace when half the galaxy lives in chains? Is it peace when conquered worlds cannot speak their own languages? Is it peace when every species must bow to the Empire or die? You speak dangerously, human, Lady Aerith warned. But the Emperor raised his hand again. Let her speak. I am curious about this one. She is different from the others. Hannah took a breath. This was her only chance. Great Emperor, I do not ask for mercy. I do not beg for my life. I only ask that you listen to a story. In your tradition, a condemned prisoner may speak one truth before judgment. I claim that right. The Emperor considered this. Very well. Speak your truth. And Hannah began to tell a story. Not about the war. Not about who was right or wrong. She told a story about a world that had known only itself. About people who had never seen the stars up close. About children who thought they were alone in the universe. She used the formal patterns of Velen historical recounting. She used the rhythms and structures that made their legends powerful. And as she spoke, something strange happened. The representatives from other worlds began to lean forward. They began to listen with a different kind of attention. Some of them had tears in their eyes. Because Hannah's story wasn't just about humans. It was about all of them. Every conquered world. Every species that had fought and lost. Every people who had been forced to give up their language and their culture and their freedom. She told their story in words they recognized. In patterns that touched something deep in their minds. In a language that was being used for the first time, not to command, but to connect. When she finished, the court was silent. Even Lady Aerith had no words ready. The silence in the Imperial Court lasted for 10 heartbeats. Hannah could feel everyone watching her, waiting. The Emperor sat perfectly still on his throne, his 3-colored eyes fixed on her face. Then something happened that had never happened in the history of the court. The Emperor stood up. The entire room gasped. Representatives from 100 worlds looked at each other in shock. Even Lady Aerith seemed surprised. Emperors did not stand during trials. They sat in judgment, high above all others. That was the way it had always been. Remove her chains, Emperor Rael said. The guards looked at Lady Aerith. She nodded slowly, her eyes narrow with suspicion. They unlocked Hannah's chains. The metal fell away from her wrists and ankles. For the first time in weeks, she could move freely. Continue your story, human, the Emperor said. Tell me more about this world that knew nothing but its own sun. Hannah felt her heart racing. She hadn't expected this. None of her planning had prepared her for the Emperor actually listening. But she couldn't stop now. Great Emperor, may I ask a question first? You may. When your people first encountered another species, before the Empire, before the conquests, what happened? The Emperor was quiet for a moment. We do not remember. That was many thousands of years ago. But you must have records, histories, stories of the first contact. Lady Aerith spoke up, her voice sharp. The Emperor has answered your question. Do not press further. But Hannah saw something in the Emperor's eyes. A flicker of something. Doubt, maybe, or curiosity. She pressed on, speaking in the formal patterns of High Valen. I have studied your language deeply, Great Emperor. And I have discovered something strange. Your language is perfect. Too perfect. Every word has a specific place. Every phrase follows rules that never change. This is not how languages grow naturally. Languages are messy. They change. They evolve. But Valen has not changed in thousands of years. Why? The court erupted in whispers. Representatives leaned toward each other, speaking in hushed voices. Hannah saw recognition on some of their faces. They had noticed this too, but had never spoken it aloud. Silence. Vorn commanded. The whispers stopped, but the tension remained. Hannah continued. I believe your language was designed, created by someone or something with a purpose. And that purpose was control. This is nonsense, Lady Irith said. Our language is the gift of the founders. They gave us the words to unite the galaxy. The founders, Hannah repeated. Who were they? Where did they come from? Where did they go? No one answered. Hannah looked around the court. She saw the answer in their silence. No one knew. The founders were a mystery even to the Valen. Let me show you what I have discovered, Hannah said. She began to speak in Valen, but she changed the order of words. She used the same vocabulary but arranged them in ways that broke the standard patterns. As she spoke, something extraordinary happened. A representative from a world called Terex, a being with blue fur and 4 arms, suddenly stood up. I remember, she said. Her voice was shaking. I remember my world before the Empire came. We had words for concepts that I have forgotten. Words that described freedom without permission, choice without approval. Another representative stood. This one was covered in scales and had eyes on stalks. My people had songs. We sang about the time before the Valen came. But I cannot remember the words anymore. Why can I not remember? More voices joined in. The court was no longer silent. Beings from dozens of worlds were speaking, some in Valen, some in fragments of their own languages that they were rediscovering. Silence. Lady Irith's voice boomed through the court. This time, something strange happened. Some of the representatives fell silent immediately, as if a switch had been flipped. But others continued talking. The command had not worked on everyone. Hannah saw it clearly now. The language controls you, she said. Certain words trigger certain responses. When a Valen superior speaks a command, your mind is programmed to obey. It is built into the language itself. You learn Valen, and you learn to be controlled. This is dangerous talk, Warren said. He signaled to the guards. Caesar. But the guards hesitated. They had heard Hannah's words. They had seen the effect on the court. Some of them were thinking thoughts they had never thought before. Emperor Rael raised his hand. Wait. He looked down at Hannah. You said humans are resistant to this control. Why? Because our languages work differently, Hannah explained. Take Korean, one of Earth's languages. We have 7 levels of formality. The way we speak changes based on age, status, relationship, and context. We think in layers. We consider multiple meanings at once. When we learned Valen, our brains didn't accept it as our only framework for thought. We kept our own languages alive in our minds. She switched to Korean for a moment, speaking a complex sentence that carried meanings that couldn't be translated directly. Then she switched back to Valen. Do you see? In Korean, I just expressed a concept that Valen has no words for. The idea that respect and equality can exist at the same time. That you can honor someone while disagreeing with them. Valen only allows respect through submission. Lady Irith stepped forward. Enough of this. The prisoner is trying to undermine the Empire. She must be executed immediately. But now the Emperor was truly interested. No, I want to understand this. If what she says is true, then we are all prisoners of our own language. Including me. You are the Emperor. Lady Irith said. You are above such concerns. Am I? Emperor Rael looked at his hands. Or am I simply the one who sits in the highest chair, speaking the same programmed words as my predecessors for 10,000 years? Hannah saw her chance. She began to speak again, this time mixing languages. She used Korean words within Valen sentence structures. She created hybrid phrases that carried meanings neither language could express alone. And as she spoke, She taught the court to think new thoughts. Freedom with responsibility, she said in a Korean Valen hybrid. The phrase made representatives sit up straighter. Strength through diversity, another hybrid phrase. Members of different species looked at each other with new eyes. Unity without submission. This phrase caused the biggest reaction. Beings throughout the court began repeating it, testing it in their mouths, feeling how it changed their thinking. Lady Irith realized what was happening. Stop her! She is breaking the linguistic bonds. She triggered something, a device hidden in her robes. Suddenly, a signal pulsed through the court. Hannah felt it like pressure in her head. All around her, representatives clutched their heads. Some fell to their knees. The signal was a command, transmitted directly into the minds of everyone who spoke Valen fluently. It was a deep command, buried in the foundation of the language. It said, defend the Empire. Destroy the threat. Those who had spoken Valen their entire lives felt the compulsion overwhelm their thoughts. Guards turned toward Hannah, weapons ready. Representatives who had been listening to her moments before now looked at her with blank eyes. But not everyone was affected. The Emperor, standing on his high throne, fought against the compulsion. Hannah could see him struggling. And some of the representatives, those who had held on to fragments of their native languages, resisted too. Jiwon and Mireille, who had been held at the side of the court, broke free from their guards. They ran toward Hannah. What did you do? Jiwon asked. I showed them the truth, Hannah said. And now the system is fighting back. The throne room descended into chaos. Those under the compulsion moved to attack Hannah and anyone defending her. Those who had broken free tried to stop them without hurting them. The court was at war with itself. In the confusion, Hannah heard a voice. It was Emperor Rael. He was speaking, but not in Valen. He was speaking in another language, one Hannah had never heard before. It was beautiful and complex, with sounds that seemed impossible for a Valen throat to make. What language is that? Hannah called up to him. The language of my world, the Emperor said, still struggling against the compulsion. Before it was conquered. Before we became Valen, I had forgotten it until this moment. Lady Irith's face showed pure rage. You would betray the Empire? You would throw away 10,000 years of order? It was never my order, the Emperor said. It was the order of whoever created this language. Whoever built this control into our very words. He made a decision. With great effort, fighting against every instinct the language had programmed into him, he spoke a command. Arrest Lady Irith. Find the source of the control signal. Shut it down. But the guards loyal to Lady Irith moved first. They surrounded the Emperor. The throne room became a battlefield. Hannah, Jiwon, and Mireille were pushed to the side by the fighting. They took cover behind one of the platforms where representatives sat. We need to get out of here, Mireille said. But Hannah shook her head. No, we need to find the source. Lady Irith triggered that signal from somewhere. If we can shut it down, we can free everyone. A Valen engineer named Kith, one of those who had resisted the compulsion, joined them. I know where the signal came from. There is an old facility beneath the palace. It was built by the founders. No one goes there anymore. Then that's where we need to go, Hannah said. They ran. The corridors beneath the imperial palace were not like the beautiful halls above. Down here, everything was old. The walls were made of dark stone covered in symbols that glowed faintly. The air smelled like metal and something else, something ancient that Hannah couldn't name. Kith led them through the maze of passages. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of fighting from the throne room, shouts, energy weapons firing, the crash of things breaking. How much farther? Jiwon asked. She had taken a weapon from a fallen guard. Her eyes constantly scanned the shadows for threats. "Not far," Kith said. His voice was strange. He kept pausing between words, as if he was fighting against something in his own mind. "The compulsion is getting stronger the closer we get to the source. I can feel it trying to make me stop you. Trying to make me defend the facility. Can you fight it?" Hannah asked. "For now. But hurry." They reached a door. It was massive, made of the same dark metal as the walls. Symbols covered its surface, glowing brighter than the ones in the corridors. Kith placed his hand on a panel next to the door. The symbols pulsed, reading his identity. The door didn't open. "It's locked," Kith said. "Only the highest members of the court can access this place." Myra stepped forward. "Let me try." She examined the panel carefully. "This is ancient technology, but the principles are the same. Give me a few minutes." While Myra worked, Hannah studied the symbols on the door. Some of them looked like Valen writing, but older, more primitive. Others looked completely different, like they came from another language entirely. "These are instructions," Hannah said quietly. "Or warnings. I can't read all of it, but I see the same symbol repeated. It means control or bind or maybe hold." "Got it," Myra said. The panel flashed green, and the door began to open. It moved slowly, grinding against the floor. The sound echoed through the corridors. Beyond the door was a room that took Hannah's breath away. It was enormous, stretching up so high that she couldn't see the ceiling. In the center was a structure made of crystal and metal, pulsing with energy. Lights moved through it in patterns, like thoughts flowing through a brain. "This is it," Kith said. "The heart of the control system." They walked closer. As they approached, Hannah felt something pressing against her mind. Not painful, but present, like someone whispering at the edge of her hearing. The whispers were in Valen, speaking commands, telling her to stop, to turn back, to defend the Empire. But the commands felt weak to her, like suggestions instead of orders. Her brain, trained in Korean and English and a dozen other human languages, didn't fully accept Valen's authority. For Kith, it was different. He fell to his knees, holding his head. "I can't fight it. The signal is too strong here. You have to go on without me." Jiwon helped him move back toward the door. "Stay here. Guard our exit." Hannah and Myra approached the central structure. Up close, Hannah could see that it wasn't just a machine. There was something biological about it. Parts of it pulsed like a heartbeat. Veins of light ran through it like blood vessels. "What is this thing?" Myra asked. Before Hannah could answer, a voice spoke. It came from the structure itself, echoing through the chamber. "It is me. I am Salin, the last of the founders, the keeper of the word." Hannah stepped back in shock. "You're alive? After 10,000 years?" "I do not live as you understand life. I exist. I maintain. I control." The lights in the structure pulsed faster. Part of the crystal became transparent, and Hannah saw something inside. A being, ancient and strange, suspended in energy. It was hard to look at directly. Its form seemed to shift and change. "Why?" Hannah asked. "Why did you create a language of control? Why force it on the galaxy?" "To protect," Salin said. "The younger races are violent. They destroy. They war. They burn worlds. I gave them language that would stop this. Language that would make them peaceful, obedient, safe." "You made them slaves," Hannah said. "I made them survive." Before the Valen language, the galaxy was chaos. Hundreds of species at war. Billions dying. I ended that. I brought order. Myri was examining the structure with her scientific equipment. "This thing is broadcasting the control signal across the entire galaxy. Every Valen communication device amplifies it. That's how it reaches so many worlds. If we destroy it, Ji-won said, we free everyone. No. Salen's voice boomed. If you destroy me, you destroy the minds of billions. They have lived their entire lives under the guidance of the language. Remove it suddenly, and their minds will break. They will go mad. You will kill more people than you save. Hannah felt sick. She had come here to free the galaxy, but Selen was right. You couldn't just remove something that had been part of people's minds for their entire lives. It would be like cutting away part of their brain. Then we're trapped, Ji-won said. The control continues forever, or we destroy the minds of everyone who speaks Valen. There might be another way, Hannah said. She looked up at Selen. You're alone. You've been alone for 10,000 years. No one to talk to except the minds you control. Don't you want something different? I do not want. I serve my purpose. That's the language talking, Hannah said. Even you are controlled by the system you created. But I can teach you something new. Let me teach you Korean. Let me show you a way of thinking that includes choice, complexity, and freedom. If you understand it, maybe you can slowly change the Valen language. Make it less controlling. Give people back their ability to choose. Impossible. The language, perfect. Hannah switched to Korean. She spoke about concepts that Valen had no words for. The beauty of making mistakes. The strength that comes from diversity. The way respect and disagreement can exist together. She spoke about how her grandmother taught her to think in layers, to see multiple truths at the same time. The lights in Salen's structure began to change. The patterns became less regular, more chaotic, but also more alive. I do not understand these concepts, Salen said, but I want to. I have not wanted anything in so long. Suddenly, the door burst open. Lady Erith entered with a squad of guards. Her face was twisted with rage. I knew you would come here. I knew you would try to corrupt the founder. She raised a weapon, pointing it at Hannah. You have destroyed the order of the galaxy. You have broken what took 10,000 years to build. For that, you must die. Ji-won stepped in front of Hannah. If you want her, you go through me first. The guards raised their weapons. Energy fields hummed to life. This was it. The final moment. But then Emperor Rael walked through the door. He looked exhausted, his armor damaged from fighting. But his eyes were clear. He had broken free of the compulsion completely. Lady Erith, stand down. That is a command from your emperor. You are no emperor, Lady Erith said. You are a traitor to the order. You would destroy everything the founders built. The founders built a prison, Rael said. And I will not be a warden anymore. Lady Erith fired her weapon. But she didn't fire at Hannah or the emperor. She fired at Salen's structure. The energy bolt hit the crystal. Cracks spread across its surface. Lights began to fail. Salen's voice cried out in pain and fear. No! Hannah ran toward the structure. If it was destroyed suddenly, everyone who spoke Valen would be damaged. Billions of minds would break at once. Ji-won tackled Lady Erith, knocking the weapon from her hand. They fought, rolling across the floor. Ji-won was a trained soldier, but Lady Erith was desperate and strong. Myre worked frantically at her equipment. I can stabilize it, but I need time. Emperor Rael joined her, using his knowledge of Valen technology to help. Together they worked to stop the collapse. But Lady Erith broke free from Ji-won. She grabbed her weapon and aimed it again at the structure. If I cannot preserve the Empire, then I will end it. Ji-won threw herself in front of the weapon. The energy bolt hit her in the chest. She fell. Hannah screamed. She ran to Ji-won's side. The commander's eyes were open, but fading. Did we win? Ji-won whispered. Yes, Hannah said. tears running down her face. Yes, we won. Ji-won smiled. Then she was gone. The guards, seeing their commander kill an unarmed prisoner, turned against Lady Aerith. They surrounded her, weapons raised. She had gone too far. Even the compulsion couldn't make them support this. Mireille finished her work. The structure stabilized. The cracks stopped spreading. Saylan's voice returned, weak but present. I understand now, Saylan said. Sacrifice, choice, love. These are concepts the language never included. The human showed me, and her friend proved it with her life. Hannah held Ji-won's body and cried. They had won, but the price was terrible. The days after Ji-won's death blurred together. Hannah remembered the funeral. They held it in the plaza outside the Imperial Palace. Thousands came to witness it. Not just humans from Earth, but beings from hundreds of conquered worlds. They came to honor a soldier who had died fighting for freedom. Emperor Rael himself spoke at the ceremony. He had renounced his title as emperor and now called himself simply Rael. This woman showed us that some things are worth more than survival. That dignity matters. That choice matters. That freedom is not a gift given by rulers, but a right that belongs to all living beings. Hannah couldn't speak at the funeral. Every time she tried, her throat closed up and tears came. Mireille spoke for both of them, telling stories about Ji-won's courage and her stubborn refusal to give up even when everything seemed lost. They buried Ji-won in soil brought from Earth. It seemed important somehow. To let her rest in the dirt of the world she had fought so hard to protect. After the funeral, the real work began. Saylan agreed to help. The ancient founder, alone for so many thousands of years, was eager to learn. Hannah spent hours teaching it about human languages, Korean, English, Spanish, Swahili, Mandarin, Japanese. So many ways of thinking. So many frameworks for understanding the world. Your species is strange, Saylan said one day. You have thousands of languages. Each one sees reality differently. How do you not go mad from the confusion? We do sometimes, Hannah admitted. But we also become stronger. We learn that there are many ways to be right. Many ways to live. That's what you took from the galaxy when you created one perfect language. Saylan was quiet for a long time. Then it said, I was trying to protect them. But I see now that I was protecting them from growth. From change. From becoming what they could be. So you'll help us? Hannah asked. Yes, I will reduce the control signal slowly. Over years, perhaps decades. I will give people time to adjust. Time to remember their own languages. Time to reclaim their own thoughts. It will not be easy. Some will resist. Some will beg me to keep controlling them because freedom is frightening. But you'll do it anyway? I will try. That is all anyone can do. The changes began immediately. Saylan altered the Valen language, removing the most powerful control elements. Words that had forced obedience became suggestions. Commands became requests. The language became softer, more flexible, more alive. The effect rippled across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, people woke up one morning and realized they could think thoughts they had never thought before. Some were terrified. Others were angry. But many felt relief, as if a weight they hadn't known they were carrying had been lifted. The Valen Empire began to fracture. Without the linguistic bonds holding it together, worlds started to declare independence. Some did it peacefully. Others fought small wars as loyalists tried to hold on to the old order. Rael worked tirelessly to make the transition as smooth as possible. He used his influence, his knowledge, and his reputation to convince worlds to choose peace over violence. He admitted openly that the Empire had been wrong. That conquest had been wrong. that he personally had been wrong to continue the system, even when he didn't understand its true nature. Many Valen were angry at him. They felt betrayed. They had believed in the Empire and the natural superiority of their species, in the order that had stood for 10,000 years. Learning it was all a lie was painful, but others were grateful. They, too, had felt the weight of the language. They had followed orders without understanding why. Now, for the first time, they could choose their own path. Hannah became something she had never expected to be. People started calling her the Voice. Not the voice of the Emperor, like Lady Erith had been, but the voice of liberation, the one who had spoken truth to power and changed the galaxy. She didn't want the title. She didn't want to be a leader. But Mireille convinced her that the galaxy needed symbols, needed hope, needed someone who represented the possibility of change. "You started this," Mireille said. "You have to help finish it." So Hannah stayed. She worked with Rael and Silen and representatives from hundreds of worlds to build something new. Not an empire, not a single government, but a federation of free worlds, each maintaining its own language and culture while cooperating on matters that affected them all. They established it on the border between human space and the former Valen territory. They called it the Academy of Free Tongues. It was part school, part embassy, part research center. People came from across the galaxy to study languages, to rediscover their lost cultures, to learn how to think in new ways. Kith joined Hannah at the academy. The Valen engineer had become one of her closest friends. He understood what it meant to break free from the language programming, because he had lived through it himself. "Sometimes I wake up and the old thoughts try to come back," he told Hannah one morning as they walked through the academy gardens. The compulsion to obey, to defer to authority, to believe the Empire was right. "It's hard to unlearn something that was built into the structure of my thoughts." "I know," Hannah said, "but you're doing it. Every day, you choose to think freely. That's all any of us can do." 5 years passed, then 10. The galaxy continued to change. The process was slow and sometimes painful, but it was happening. Earth was free. The Valen forces had withdrawn, and humanity was rebuilding. Hannah received regular messages from her family. Her mother was proud of her, but also worried. "When are you coming home?" she asked in every message. Hannah didn't have an answer. The academy had become her home. The work had become her life. There was still so much to do. On the 10th anniversary of Jiwan's death, Hannah returned to the memorial they had built for her. It was a simple stone with her name carved in Korean and Valen. Around it, people had placed flowers and tokens from dozens of worlds. Rael joined her at the memorial. The former emperor looked older now, tired, but also more at peace than Hannah had ever seen him. "I think about her often," Rael said. "She died so that I could be free, so that all of us could be free. I will carry that debt for the rest of my life." "She didn't die for you," Hannah said gently. "She died for the idea that everyone deserves choice. That's bigger than any one person. Perhaps." Rael placed a token at the memorial, a piece of metal from his old imperial armor. "I renounce my title, but I cannot renounce my responsibility. The Empire was built on my watch, even if I didn't understand what it truly was. I will spend my life trying to repair the damage." A young Valen child approached them, holding her mother's hand. She looked up at Hannah with wide eyes. "Are you really the Voice?" The child asked in Valen, but it was New Valen, the language as it had evolved over the past 10 years, softer, more flexible, beautiful in its imperfection. "I'm just Hannah," Hannah said, kneeling down to the child's level. "I'm someone who learned to speak in different ways. Just like you can. My mother says you saved the galaxy." Hannah smiled. "Your mother is very kind. But I didn't save the galaxy alone. Many people helped. Many people sacrificed. And the galaxy is still being saved every day by people who choose to be kind and brave and free. The child thought about this. Then she said, I'm learning Korean. It's hard, but I like it. It makes me think different thoughts. That's wonderful, Hana said. What's your name? Jiwon. I'm named after the commander. The one who died here. Hana felt tears in her eyes, but they were good tears. That's a beautiful name. I think she would be proud that you carry it. After the child and her mother left, Hana and Rail stood together in silence for a while. Do you think we succeeded? Rail asked finally. Is the galaxy better now than it was? Hana considered the question carefully. It's different. Some things are better. Some things are still broken. People are still figuring out how to live without the old certainties. But at least now they have the choice to figure it out. That's something. Will it be enough? It has to be. We can't control the future any more than the founders could. All we can do is give people the tools to make their own choices, their own mistakes, their own successes. A message came through on Hana's communication device. It was from Mai Ray, who was working in another part of the academy. They had discovered a new language on a remote world, one that had somehow survived the Empire's conquest, hidden in small communities. They wanted Hana's help documenting it before it disappeared. Work calls, Hana said. It always does, Rail replied. But that's a good thing. It means there's still more to build, more to fix, more to discover. As Hana walked back toward the academy, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a prisoner in chains to someone people called the Voice. From a defeated soldier of a conquered world to someone who would help change the structure of galactic civilization. But she also thought about Jiwon, about Taemin, who had betrayed them but was trying to rebuild his life. About the thousands of unnamed people who had suffered under the Empire. About those still suffering as the galaxy struggled through its transformation. The work was far from finished. It would probably never be finished. Freedom wasn't a destination. It was a constant choice, made over and over again by billions of beings across thousands of worlds. Inside the academy, students from 100 different species were gathered in the main hall. They were practicing a new technique Hana had developed. Speaking in multiple languages at